Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry I have to wake you. You a doctor?
That's right.
Airplane isn't just one of the funniest movies ever made, it's a full-blown fever dream that somehow made it to theaters. But behind all the chaos are some wild behind-the-scenes secrets most fans don't know about. From deleted scenes to the FBI getting involved over a joke, this movie is packed with ridiculous details. Stick around because these 20 mind-blowing facts are about to make you see airplanes in a completely different way. Fact 1. Leslie Nielsen's fart machine took over the set. Leslie Nielsen might have delivered some of the most deadpan lines in comedy history, but behind the scenes, he was the biggest goofball on set, and his favorite weapon? A fart machine. Nielsen was already known in Hollywood for carrying a handheld fart noisemaker everywhere he went. On the set of Airplane, he'd crank the mischief up to 11. He'd squeeze it during rehearsals, right in the middle of someone's emotional line, or let one rip during serious takes just to throw his co-stars off. He was relentless. The cast and crew never knew when it was coming, and he loved every second of the chaos. At first it was funny, then it became a full-blown fart epidemic. Fact 2. The lost Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scene no one's ever seen. Before he became the deadpan co-pilot in Airplane, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was already a basketball legend, an unstoppable force in the NBA, and a cultural icon. So when he appeared in the film as Roger Murdoch, fans were stunned and delighted to see him breaking into type, especially in that now iconic scene where a kid confronts him about not trying during road games. But what most people don't know is that Kareem actually shot another scene for the movie that never made it into the final cut, and it's basically vanished from history. In this lost moment, Kareem is said to have appeared in full Lakers uniform right there in the cockpit as if he just jogged off the court and into the flight deck. The scene was reportedly surreal and hilarious, playing into the absurd logic of the movie where nothing quite makes sense. But the filmmakers ended up cutting it, possibly due to licensing concerns with the NBA, or simply to keep the tone more grounded. What's even crazier, that footage has never surfaced since. Fact 3. The script was written in a lawyer's office. You'd think one of the funniest scripts in movie history was born in a writer's room packed with comedians, right? No, the Airplane script was actually written in the office of the filmmaker's entertainment lawyer. At the time, the trio of Jim Abrahams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker, known as Zaz, were still relatively unknown. They had this absurd idea: take a serious 1950s disaster film, 0 Hour, and turn it into a full-blown comedy by keeping the structure but replacing the drama with completely ridiculous dialogue and characters. But they were worried that if they worked on the script at home or in a typical office, they'd get too relaxed and distracted. So they set up shop at their lawyer's place, writing late into the night at a big conference table surrounded by legal documents and law books. Fact 4. The FBI actually called over a joke in the credits. Airplane is packed with jokes from start to finish, but the filmmakers didn't stop at the final scene. They even turned the end credits into a punchline. Buried among the names and job titles was one bizarre entry that read, "Author of A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens." Now, obviously, Charles Dickens had nothing to do with the movie. He died in 1870. But the filmmakers thought it would be funny to treat him like any other crew member, sneaking him into the credits like a tongue-in-cheek shout-out. Problem is, not everyone got the joke. According to legend and backed by more than one interview, the studio received a serious phone call from the FBI asking why they had falsely credited Charles Dickens. Whether the FBI genuinely thought it was copyright fraud or just wanted to know what the hell was going on, the fact remains, they were not amused. The filmmakers tried to explain it was satire, but by then it was too late. The film had already been released, and the joke was permanently part of every print. Fact 5. The red and white zone announcers were a real married couple.
Tell me which zone is for stopping and which zone is for loading.
Listen, Betty, don't start up with your white zone shit again.
One of the weirdest and most overlooked jokes in Airplane happens right at the airport, when you hear two voiceover announcers arguing over the red and white zones. At first, it sounds like standard airport jargon. The white zone is for immediate loading and unloading of passengers only. But then it slowly devolves into a petty marital spat about abortion, jealousy, and relationship drama all through the airport PA system. But here's the wild part. Those voices weren't professional actors. They were an actual married couple. Their names were Hal Douglas and Joyce Gordon, and they were the real-life announcers at Los Angeles International Airport. In other words, if you flew through LAX in the late 70s, you probably heard these exact voices giving you boarding instructions. That's what made the joke so clever. It sounded totally real because it was. Fact 6. Airplane featured one of the first ever post-credit gags. Today, we're used to Marvel movies sneaking in post-credit scenes to tease sequels or drop a final joke, but Airplane was way ahead of the curve. Back in 1980, when most audiences would walk out the moment the credits started rolling, Airplane gave them one last laugh if they stuck around. In the very final seconds, we cut back to a scene from the very beginning of the movie, the taxicab that Ted Stryker abandoned at the curb when he ran inside the terminal. The passenger is still sitting in the back seat, waiting patiently. He checks his watch, looks mildly annoyed, and then mutters, "Well, I'll give him another 20 minutes, but that's it." Cut to black. It's a blink and you'll miss it gag, but it's widely credited as one of the first true post-credit comedy scenes in film history. Fact 7. Jonathan Banks worked air traffic control long before Breaking Bad.
625, he's holding. He said, no, he's down.
Before he was throwing chairs as Mike Ehrmantraut in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Jonathan Banks was managing air traffic in Airplane. Yep, long before he became everyone's favorite grumpy fixer, Banks had a small but memorable role as Gunderson, one of the frazzled air traffic controllers in the tower. You can spot him in several scenes, pacing, panicking, and reacting to Lloyd Bridges' increasingly unhinged orders. It's the kind of role most people overlook, especially since Banks looks completely different. In Airplane, he's young, clean-shaven, and almost unrecognizable compared to his later tough guy roles. Fact 8. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar took the role to buy a rug.
But you must have me confused with someone else. My name is Roger Murdoch. I'm the co-pilot.
It's one of the most random and iconic celebrity cameos in comedy history. NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar playing co-pilot Roger Murdoch. But his reason for accepting the role wasn't about acting, comedy, or film at all. It was about home decor. When the filmmakers approached Kareem, he wasn't the first choice. They originally wanted Pete Rose, the baseball star, but since they were filming during baseball season, Rose wasn't available. So they pivoted to Kareem, who happened to be interested if the price was right. According to producer John Davison, Kareem asked for a very specific amount, $35,000. Why? Because that was the exact cost of an expensive oriental rug he had his eye on. He literally accepted the part just to afford a rug. It's an absurdly perfect origin story for a cameo that became one of the most memorable parts of the movie. Fact 9. The jive dialogue was completely improvised by the actors.
Just hang loose, blood. She's gonna catch up on the rebound on the med side.
The jive-talking passengers in Airplane deliver one of the most absurd and unexpectedly brilliant scenes in the entire movie. Their exaggerated street slang, fast-talking back and forth, and the shock twist of a little old white lady translating it perfectly, it's comedy gold. But here's the kicker, none of that was written by the film's creators. The original script just called for two guys speaking jive, but the lines written by the Zaz team were clunky, stereotypical, and frankly, kind of cringe. Thankfully, the actors Norman Alexander Gibbs and Al White stepped in and completely rewrote their own dialogue. They knew what would sound natural, authentic, and most importantly, hilarious. Fact 10. The plane sounds are completely wrong on purpose. You don't have to be an aviation expert to notice something strange when the plane takes off in airplanes. Listen closely and you'll hear it. The unmistakable sound of a propeller plane. The only problem? The aircraft in the movie is a commercial jet, a Boeing 707, which runs on jet engines, not propellers. So, was it a mistake? Not at all. The filmmakers did it on purpose as another layer of absurdity. Throughout the movie, every single time the plane appears on screen, it's accompanied by the sound of an old-school propeller engine, straight out of a 1940s war film. The sound effect becomes even funnier once you realize how consistent it is, whether the jet is taking off, flying smoothly, or crashing through chaos. It always sounds like something that should be flying mail across the Arctic. Fact 11. The opening scene parodies Jaws with an actual Universal lawsuit risk. Airplane wastes no time with the jokes. The opening scene is a direct parody of the famous Jaws theme, except instead of a shark fin, it's an airplane tail cutting through the clouds like it's hunting for blood. The music, almost identical to John Williams' terrifying Jaws score. But here's what most viewers missed. The filmmakers were this close to getting sued by Universal Pictures. The scene was so on the nose that Universal was ready to hit them with a lawsuit for copyright infringement. But fortunately, they didn't go through with it, likely because the tone of the airplane was so obviously a parody that even a court might have laughed it off. Plus, Universal had recently been criticized for suing Mad Magazine over a Jaws parody, which backfired and made them look humorless. Fact 12. Leslie Nielsen's iconic "Don't Call Me Shirley" line was almost cut.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious.
And don't call me Shirley.
It's arguably the most famous line from Airplane, "I am serious, and don't call me Shirley." But what most fans don't know is that this now legendary joke almost didn't make the final cut. The line came during one of Leslie Nielsen's deadpan exchanges, which was the heart of his character's brilliance. But during early test screening, some producers worried that the joke might fall flat or confuse audiences who weren't paying close attention. It was subtle, especially compared to the rest of the film's slapstick chaos, and they thought it might get lost in the noise. Thankfully, the filmmakers stuck to their guns. They knew that Airplane was built on the contrast between ridiculous scenarios and ultra-serious delivery, and this line was the perfect example. When Nielsen delivered it without even twitching, the test audiences roared, and the joke instantly became comedy gold. Fact 13. Steven Stucker wrote Johnny's lines himself. If there's one character in Airplane who completely steals every scene he's in, it's Johnny, played by the flamboyant, quick-witted Steven Stucker. While most of the film script was tightly written by the directing trio, Johnny's dialogue, that was all Stucker. The directors gave Steven free rein to ad-lib and write his own material for the role, trusting his offbeat, rapid-fire humor. And he didn't disappoint. His one-liners became instant quotables and elevated the already absurd tone of the movie. What made this even more groundbreaking was how unique Johnny's character was at the time. In the early 1980s, overly gay characters in mainstream films were rare, and even rare were ones played with such unapologetic energy. Stucker didn't just play Johnny, he was Johnny. Fact 14. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was paid extra just to wear his Lakers gear.
You're Roger Murdoch, the co-pilot.
Sorry, son. I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
When NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar appeared as co-pilot Roger Murdoch, audiences were already laughing at the absurd casting. But there was a hilarious detail that went unnoticed by most viewers, and it came with a price tag. In one scene, Kareem is dragged out of the cockpit, revealing that he's not a pilot at all. He's clearly Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wearing his full Los Angeles Lakers uniform under his pilot outfit. The joke lands hard, especially after a young passenger earlier in the film calls him out by name and critiques his basketball performance. But here's the kicker. Kareem was actually paid an extra $5,000 just to wear his Lakers shorts in that one visual gag. The film's total offer was $35,000, but Kareem's agent negotiated an additional fee specifically for the uniform appearance, proving that even comedy legends had to pay a little extra for authenticity. Fact 15. Maureen McGovern was a disaster queen.
Yes? There's a little girl on board up front who's ill and...
Before she sang her heart out in Airplane as the hilariously unbothered nun strumming a guitar while Lisa Davis flatlined next to her, Maureen McGovern had already become the unofficial voice of disaster movies in the 1970s. No, really, she was the go-to singer when Hollywood wanted to emotionally wreck you as buildings collapsed. She first rose to fame with The Morning After, the Oscar-winning theme song from The Poseidon Adventure, 1972, one of the earliest disaster blockbusters. Just 2 years later, she followed it up with We May Never Love Like This Again, the soaring theme from The Towering Inferno, 1974. Both songs played during end credits while chaos smoldered on screen, and both became synonymous with tragic survival epics. So when Airplane came along, casting her in a spoof of the very genre she helped define was comedy gold. It was a brilliant in-joke for audiences who recognized her voice from much more serious melodramatic scenes. Fact 16. A crew member accidentally shows up on camera. In one of the final airport scenes where Ted Stryker is rushing through the terminal, there's a blink and you'll miss it mistake hiding in plain sight. As the camera pulls back, you can actually spot a crew member letting go of a cable right in the background. It was clearly someone from the production team, probably helping with equipment or managing the tracking shot, but somehow they ended up in the frame. Instead of reshooting or editing around it, the moment stayed in the final cut. And honestly, it kind of fits. Airplane thrives on chaos, so this tiny slip-up just blends into the madness, making it another unintentional joke in a movie full of them. Fact 17. No comedians were cast. Unlike most comedies that build their cast around seasoned stand-up comedians or known funny faces, Airplane took a radically different approach. Almost none of the main cast were professional comedians. The filmmakers deliberately avoided casting well-known comedians, instead opting for actors who were primarily dramatic or character performers. Leslie Nielsen, for example, was famous for serious roles in dramas and thrillers before Airplane turned him into a comedy legend with his perfectly deadpan delivery. Robert Hayes, who played Ted Stryker Striker was relatively unknown and had a background in drama and theater. Even the supporting roles were filled with actors who brought a fresh, unfamiliar comedic style, not from years on the comedy circuit, but through their natural ability to play absurdity completely straight. Fact 18. The dance scene blooper you didn't notice. The famous dance scene in Airplane where Ted Stryker nervously shows off his moves to Elaine looks perfectly smooth on screen. But what most viewers don't realize is that there's a hilarious blooper hidden right in the middle of the shot. During one of the takes, Robert Hayes, Ted Stryker, accidentally kicks his co-star Julie Haggerty, Elaine, a little too hard. Instead of stopping or breaking character, Haggerty immediately gives him a playful, annoyed look right in the shot. Neither of them flinched or reset, they just rolled with it. Because the movie relies heavily on deadpan reactions and subtle humor, this quick, unscripted moment blends seamlessly with the scene's awkward vibe. It's a perfect example of how Airplane embraced imperfections and spontaneous comedy to keep the energy natural and hilarious. Fact 19. The filmmakers bought the script rights to a serious movie just to mock it. Believe it or not, Airplane isn't entirely original. It's technically a spoof of a dead serious 1957 disaster film called 0 Hour. And when we say spoof, we mean almost word for word in some places. So much so that the filmmakers had to legally buy the rights to 0 Hour just to avoid a copyright lawsuit. The team had discovered 0 Hour late at night while watching old TV reruns, and they couldn't stop laughing not because it was funny, but because it took itself way too seriously. The film had everything they needed for parody. A traumatized ex-pilot, a doomed commercial flight, passengers sick from bad food, and even a dramatic line about picking the wrong week to quit something. So they bought the rights for just $2,500 and started building Airplane from there, sometimes lifting entire lines of dialogue, then twisting them into something ridiculous. Fact 20. Jim Abrahams passed in 2024, a final tribute to the Zaz genius. Jim Abrahams, the co-creator of Airplane and a master of parody filmmaking, passed away on November 26, 2024 at the age of 80. He died of natural causes at his home in Santa Monica, California. As part of the legendary Zaz trio, Abrahams revolutionized comedy with films like Airplane, The Naked Gun, Top Secret, and Hot Shots. Their unique blend of rapid-fire gags, visual puns, and deadpan delivery set a new standard for spoof comedies. Abrahams also directed Big Business and co-wrote Scary Movie 4, among other projects. Beyond his filmmaking legacy, Abrahams co-founded the Charlie Foundation for Ketogenic Therapies, inspired by his son Charlie's battle with epilepsy. The foundation advocates for ketogenic diets as a treatment for pediatric epilepsy.
By the way, is there anyone on board who knows how to fly a plane?
Thanks for flying with us through these wild Airplane facts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the funniest movies ever made, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more crazy movie secrets. Got a favorite Airplane moment or a fact we missed? Drop it in the comments, we love hearing from fellow fans. Until next time, keep laughing and keep flying high.